teleportation, but I did learn that Dr. Evil has moved to a new lair outside of Tokyo, Japan. By the way, I realized that I have a large mole on my...
We're just gonna pause that at the moment. It's in the middle of watching it, but I want to do this now while I still have the energy, and I just made myself a fresh cup of joe. What is this blue line reflecting in the camera? Do you guys see that? Do you see what's on my shirt? And I quickly determined that was the man cave light up sign. So that got that issue resolved. The noise in the background is a fresh cup of coffee. Currently done. And I gotta turn it off like right now. But hey, happy Friday guys. Hope you guys are doing great today. It's already been a minute since I went over a collection, or as I should start calling it, a sub-collection. A collection within a collection. And if you guys haven't already seen that, I did some rearranging in the game room after cleaning it up. I just posted a video recently, so it's whatever you guys want. There we go, coffee maker's off before it drives anybody bananas. Guys, I'm thinking about a console right now. It's an old one, it's an oldie but a goodie. It's one that I'm not particularly a big fan of, but is super easy to collect for and does have its own place in the gaming library. Oh boy, somebody walking upstairs on top of all the other shenanigans going around this apartment. But guys, have I showed you the Atari 2600 collection yet? I don't sleep on that one either. I've told you guys I'm already not crazy about the Atari 2600 personally. If you want to go with the 2600, might I recommend the 2600 Plus, the 7800, or the 7800 Plus? And I don't think I have told you this yet. My first experience playing Atari 2600 games was this At-O Games portable handheld that plays 2600 games and had a version of Pac-Man on there that wasn't shit like the 2600 version. I believe it was the 5200 version of the game. But if there's one thing I don't believe I've done on this channel yet, it is going over every Atari 2600 game in my collection. I've briefly showed I would say at least half of my 7800 collection, but we'll get to that too. So quickly, because number one, these games, they don't typically last long for each playthrough. They're fun, but I think like no more than a minute is the time I need to briefly explain each game. And number two, I think I cut myself off on my own sentence. What I was trying to say was I'm not crazy about the 2600 because of, well, number one, the games don't last very long. I mean, they're timeless and they are fun to they are fun to play every now and then. But I mean, as much as I love pixels, I find that there is a such thing as too pixely. Graphics are a little too blocky for my taste. The sound, I know some people love them, and I can respect that. I'm not crazy about the sound either. Guys, and I've stated in a video I made a while ago, I have the Mattel Intellivision, and I think I like that one a little bit more. The ones that came afterwards, like as soon as the Atari dropped, I think are a little bit more up my alley. Even being so much as a little obscure. And to me, it doesn't have anything to do with its age. I mean, I know the Atari is a very retro video game system. I still respect it. And I still like collecting for it. I'm not saying I hate it. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just, there are more systems that are up my alley, and especially the ones that are in between. like really retro and really modern. I'm going to stop you right there for just a second. The Atari 2600 is a classic console that has gained popularity, and rightfully so. It is definitely broke through the walls of home entertainment, especially with TV electronics and computer games alike. It is a classic system, and before I continue this video, I just want to say, just because I'm biased against the 2600 doesn't mean I'm disrespecting it or hating on it in any way, shape, or form, because I know a lot of people are much bigger fans of the 2600 than I am. And I claim that the 7800 version is better, or the Atari 7800 is better, in my opinion. But what me from a few minutes ago is saying is definitely his and my own opinion, because we are the exact same people. But the Atari 2600 can be very fun and addicting if you find the right games for it. And we'll get to the 7800 library in a little while. But let's get back to a few minutes ago and continue discussing what we're about to talk about in this video. So, going back, enjoy the rest of the video. So if you guys want to... So what do you guys think of the Atari 2600? Do you think it's as classic as people say it is, or is it a little bit too minuscule in the technical department, if that makes sense? So let's jump into the collection. I'll bust out some 7800 games because I do like the 7800 library a little more. So let's go ahead and get started. We can go a little bit out of alphabetical order here just because of the way I have the games displayed. Believe it or not, there are some very fun Atari 2600 games. There are some very fun ones out there, basically on par with the ones that are deemed like the best of the best on the 2600. And we're starting off with a weird one here. Look at the shape of the cartridge. It looks like a damn tombstone, but this is actually from M Network. And I found this at a library, believe it or not. This was at a bookstore, and they had some video games, and I picked up a couple Atari games from there. Another one we'll get to. And is also considered one of the best ones, but this one is Dark Cavern. Now, I kind of, back when cartridges were confusing and you didn't know really what system they were on, say from Coleco, the cartridge looked very similar. You really had to read that label to figure out what system they were on, because the cartridges just looked so damn similar. This looks like an Intellivision cartridge, and if you compare the two, they are nearly identical except for this bottom piece that has a port to the 2600. And here you're running around and shooting enemies, and you're in this, I like to say this dungeon. You're running around in a dungeon. But, I mean, for what it is, I think it's a pretty phenomenal game. I think it's programmed very well. It controls great. You can pick up your little guns that are strewn about in the stage. And if you're really good at dodging, you'll really enjoy this one. Whew, hot. Coming to the burning realization I'm going to need some coffee, because I'm already starting to run out of energy. We got a very interesting one here, or should I say an interesting 10 games here on one cartridge. This came with my Atari 2600 Plus. We got the 10-in-1 Atari 2600 cartridge. I love what they did with the cartridge and the sleeve here. The sleeve definitely does it justice. It's very colorful, and I'm glad they included a sleeve in the first place. But look, they even took the artwork to the cartridge itself, and boy, they really had to do a label upside down. What the hell? But on this one cartridge, there is a problem I have with this cartridge. There are some games missing that they really should have added. If you see smoke, it's my coffee, by the way. And it's steam, not smoke. My bad. But what you do get on this cartridge is adventure, combat. That's my first gripe about this cartridge. Some of these games are 2-player exclusive, so it's like, you didn't come with a second controller, so why are you adding 2-player games on there? I mean, I know combat's very popular, it's a historical game, but I'll get to it in a second. Okay, dodge 'em. Okay. Haunted House, interesting. Maze Craze, it's so generic, so basic. Missile Command, okay. Missile Command's very good. Real Sports Volleyball, out of all the real sports games, volleyball? What? Surround? I already forgot what that one is. Video pinball? I'm a little bit biased. I love video pinball games. I'm not going to get too much into it right now, but video pinball is pretty decent for the 2600. And Yar's Revenge. Okay. Adventure, video pinball, Yar's Revenge, and Missile Command are the clear highlights of this cartridge. If you want to go half and half, Haunted House, I guess. There is no Centipede, no Asteroids, and I can understand not having the paddle games on here because that was a separate cartridge, as well as the M Network games. I can accept that. But you left off Centipede and Asteroids. I mean, I'll add a brief spoiler alert for the video right now. I do have a separate cartridge of Asteroids. Funny enough, I got for free from trading in a bunch of like wires and crap. That was it. The game was like $2 and they just said I could take it for free, which was awesome. We'll get to that in a second. But you're adding top-of-the-line Atari 2600 games here. Why do you not have Centipede or Asteroids? Real Sports Volleyball and Maze Craze, and I don't agree with some of these games. Oh, what I do like, though, is you have these little switches on the back, and when you flip the switches, you can like activate the game according to the little pictures here. Might be a little unnecessary rather than adding a simple menu, but you know what? I guess that's a way around it. Might be a little harder than necessary to program, but oh geez, I already said like these games would be better reviewed in a minute, and well, okay, these are 10 games, so 4 minutes, not bad. Let's just go on. All right, guys, here it is. Here's the Atari Classic Asteroids. Yeah, this is oh man, like I said, they definitely should have added this one. It is a ton of fun. And come to find out, if you press down on the joystick and then the button, believe it or not, I did not know previously you could warp across the stage. Now, it's a gamble because you could warp into an asteroid, and that's a done deal right there. But, oh, also, something I absolutely love about these Atari cartridges, where they do have them, is the little cover here to protect the circuit board. The bad news about that is if your games get very dirty and the games are trapped in there, you might be a little hard-pressed to find. They are very hard to clean. You have to push them open, take off the sticker. You just butcher the look of the cartridge, and I'll show you one in a little bit that I did do some cleaning on. Poor little game, because the one I did do cleaning on is actually very good. But back to Asteroids, it's very good. It's a very solid little shooter. Like Atari, it's like you got your certain video game consoles that have spaceship shooters. Atari is definitely one of them. Yeah, Asteroids was like one of your first shooters, except you can go anywhere on the stage. And for what it is, it's very good. Guys, I want to say that I also have Centipede. I really do. I did have the cartridge for it at one point. And, first and last time I'm buying Atari games from the exchange near me, because the games down there are like never clean, and that game was dirty to shit. I could not get that circuit board clean enough, and I don't know, that really cheesed me off because Centipede is one of those games I really want in my collection. But easy to find, so I'll get it eventually. I just cut the video, and real quick, I should just go by saying just about all these games I have here are super, super easy to find, super cheap. Atari is like one of those huge collection starters. It's like, you can't grow a collection much quicker than this, unless you're collecting DVDs for the PS2. Here's a somewhat exciting classic, Berserk. Now, Berserk is a very interesting game, you know. I wonder if there's ever confusion between Berserk and Robotron 2084, because they kind of have similar concepts, like robots invading the world, you know, all that cliche stuff. No disrespect, of course. And then you're running around in a 3D environment, sort of 2.5D, shooting the robots. And, you know, I cannot really genuinely figure out what the goal of this game is, other than running around shooting robots. It's a maze game, essentially, and a maze game that should be made into a video game. This is, if you want to know how to make a maze game into a video game, look no further than Berserk. They did it right here. I mean, I cannot really figure out where to go. I just go wherever. I'll hear some like blips and bleeps, assuming that's where I'm supposed to go, and you just kind of keep shooting stuff. But no, if you haven't played Berserk for the 2600, I recommend this one. It's hard, and it gets downright unfair at times. But you know what? It's definitely one I recommend picking up. When you think of Atari games, you mostly probably think of the games that play with a joystick. But real Atari OGs know that the paddle controllers also had some games that were exclusive to it and also play very well, and are actually very so gimmicky to the point where it might just be makes it more worth playing the 2600 in some areas. And one of these games is Breakout, good old classic Breakout. In my this is the only Atari 2600 game I have the box for, and the cartridge is not in too bad a shape. Breakout is, well, it's as basic as ball breaking, jeez, that's not going to sound good out of context. Brick breaking games get. It honestly doesn't get more basic than this, for being genuine. What I do like, though, is in some hidden areas, as far as I'm aware, either that or Super Breakout is where you have some bouncing balls hidden within the bricks, and then you could break them out, and then you get double balls. You get two balls each, and sometimes 3 balls. I honestly kind of feel bad about this game. Circus Atari, and this is the only cartridge I have in the stash that has this original game program label, the just text label. It's a pretty neat game in terms of like mechanics, where you're bouncing around the clowns and you're popping the squares or the balloons in this case. It's a tricky game, but the paddle controller does do it justice. And why I say I feel bad for this is, if you take a closer look at the label and how it's peeling and the sticker that says Circus Atari on it, this is the one I had to break into to get it refurbished. When I first got it, I was afraid to put it in the Atari because it was so filthy on the inside. So, following some YouTube tutorials, I cracked this open. Luckily, the circuit board in here now is pretty clean, to my knowledge. I did manage to put this together. Atari games are not typically the easiest to get cleaned and refurbished, especially if you have this underneath. You gotta really get into that circuit board. The easiest way is to, if you see these holes right here, gotta poke something into those and it will release the circuit board or the connector pins, so you can just give it a quick clean. But if your circuit board is really dirty, might I recommend cracking this open. If you can get the sticker in nice shape. I still have the sticker, believe it or not, the original sticker on the side. I don't want to just throw it out, but yeah, at least the game works, and that's the most important part. If I had to sum up one reason for me going and playing Atari in the first place, it's definitely arcade ports. Whether it comes to Atari's original home classics to ports from other companies like Midway and Namco, they, gotta say, ports are done pretty well for the most part. Not Pac-Man. But one of these ports being Defender. Yeah, actually, I'd say I can give you some really good news about this one right now. I definitely prefer this over the arcade version. The button layout of the arcade version, I'm sorry to every classic arcade fan out there. I myself, who loves arcade games and grew up with Namco classics, what the hell is going on with that control pad or the control buttons for the arcade version? They are all over the place. Ladies and gentlemen, if I'm playing a video game, in the end of the day, if I got a joystick and buttons and I can shoot things, good enough. Okay? One thing I think if you hook up a second controller to this, you can use the bombs. Like, I think that's how you use the screen clearing bombs. So technically you gotta pay for a second controller on top of paying for the game to use the bombs. Talk about pay to win before pay to win was even a thing. Nah, I mean, if you just have the joystick and the game, you're set. This is a solid version of Defender. Please check it out. Assuming you've seen this one in my Namco collection video, it is Dig Dug and a pretty good port of the game at that. Pretty basic. I mean, this is probably the most basic version of Dig Dug you can get. Is it me or does the artwork look surprisingly modern? Like, look. Something about this artwork is kind of ahead of its time. And the game itself, I love that little tune where Dig Dug, I assume is his name, he's walking and that little tune plays as you're walking. I think that definitely is like one of the main themes for the Atari 2600. But overall, a pretty well playing port of the game. You might be gobsmacked to find that even Taito has ported games to the Atari 2600. And a pretty solid game here is Jungle Hunt. Now, to my knowledge, there were a couple versions of Jungle Hunt in the arcade. And might I add, this is probably one of my favorite cartridge artworks for the 2600 so far. Look at that goofy ass smile. Well, he's trying to avoid crocodiles. The game itself plays great. It's kind of similar to another certain game that I've wanted for the 2600 for a while. And we'll definitely get to that. But Jungle Hunt is like the second best option next to that, honestly, because a few hints I would have to give you are jumping on vines, avoiding alligators, and boulders or other kind of topographical obstacles. Sound familiar? We will give you the answer shortly. If your answer to the previous game was Pitfall, you are as correct as you can get. Pitfall is regarded to be the best 2600 game out there and one I've been looking for ages. Even though I said these are pretty easy to find, for some reason I feel like Pitfall was a little bit trickier, probably because everybody wants one if they got a 2600. And I don't blame them. If we're talking about like addicting and well-programmed Atari 2600 games, this is it. This is the game to get for the 2600. And I got a couple exciting extras to share with you guys. So, probably already mentioned in my SNES collecting video, I have Pitfall the Mayan Adventure. And if you, couple secrets. If you press a button combination at the title screen and find the pixelated scorpion in level 2, you can actually play this direct version of the game emulated and on the Super Nintendo. It plays literally the same exact way, so technically I have 2 copies of this game, funny enough. But had to go with the standalone Atari cartridge. And also thank you to I don't you could probably barely see it, but whoever signed this, shout out to you if you're around watching this. Thank you for trading in your copy of Pitfall. It's in a pretty sweet collection, if I do say so myself. Oh, and in my game design class last semester, as it took in an extra, I made this board game. Me and another person have actually made this board game for one of our projects, and I did like pixelated figures and hop around the map, and the plot of it and the game mechanics were based around Pitfall. Our professor said it reminded him more of Pitfall 2, and I could see why. I wasn't really thinking Metroidvania and a hop-around game, as we used to call them, but the game mechanics and the cracks in the floors and the enemies were kind of Pitfall inspired. I mean, we also incorporated like bits of Castlevania in there, like a horror theme. But this was the basis for one of my projects. Flabbergasted? No? Okay, fair enough. If we're talking top of the line shooters for the Atari 2600, you gotta go with River Raid. I think one of the reasons I like these two particular games so much is because they were included on that At Games portable Atari 2600, and I definitely remember playing these and finding these to be a little more decent than a lot of the other games. I also like Aquaventure. The different port of Pac-Man, that one was alright. It was on the cover, as a matter of fact. Among a couple others. Oh, it also had Galaxian. That's probably the only port of Galaxian so far that I actually don't mind, because it's like that's the only way that game can be impressive in my opinion, is if it's on the 2600. But River Raid really went above and beyond. You can feel your plane. It's not a chore at all because the fuel tanks are everywhere. You can destroy them. You can blow enemies up. You can blow away the bridge and watch that screen flicker. And I still have Pitfall out here because I want to show you something cool. Activision cartridges were genius. If you want to stack them on top of each other, maybe it's a little more painful sideways, but if you put them together like this, they actually lock in place. This is how creative Atari gets with their cartridges and their branding. There were a lot of variants out there, and Activision cartridges don't look half bad. In fact, might even prefer them over the pretty overly basic Atari 2600 cartridges. Nothing wrong with those, but the locking mechanism is pretty sweet. No, I did not crack into this one. The logo was missing, so I drew my own, and a little alien as well. Space Invaders. Another port of Space Invaders, but for the 2600, and one you should definitely check out. Another one that screams Atari 2600, and again, better than the arcade version, in my opinion, for simply being a game that, for the Atari's power and capabilities, is something that should definitely be on there. And above all else, if you're going to make a game as basic as Space Invaders, you got to have it on the 2600. Doesn't play bad. Plays pretty well. You get your game options, of course, like just about with most other games. Yeah. Iconic game. I have a little bit of a hard time getting into Star Raiders. And that's kind of my own fault, because before picking up this game, and I still don't have a keypad controller. Technically, you need a keypad controller to play this game. If you have that, then I think you definitely fully play the game. I kind of rely on the joystick and fire button to poorly blast away spaceships. The combat in this game is very weird. I can never seem to hit the knockoff TIE fighters properly. I mean, I can't really give this one much of an opinion. Because like I said, I don't have the keypad controller. But I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. It's pretty advanced for the time. Here we go. We didn't get the 3 balls in the original version of Breakout. Then we should definitely get it here. It is Super Breakout. Basically more or less the same game. I actually got this one on the same day as Breakout to start filling up the paddle controller collection. So I think really all there is to say is I kind of do like the quirky sound effects a little bit better than in original Breakout. And just overall a direct sequel to Breakout. I mean, that's it really. Better sound effects and a little more in-depth for the 2600. Vanguard is regarded as one of the best shooters on the Atari 2600. Do I like it better than River Raid? I mean, that's a pretty solid question. It's like comparing... I would say it's like comparing Gradius to Life Force. Both are great and are... Well, not that they're the same series at all, but I think both of them are really great. So my question to you guys is, what do you think is the better Atari 2600 shooter? River Raid or Vanguard? Because this is also a very highly rated game. Again, love the artwork. I love the obnoxiously fat spaceship and that big 2600 logo on top and the little rainbow line, the thin line between Vanguard and the Atari logo. Definitely one of my favorite looking cartridges other than Jungle Hunt. I love how you could shoot in all 4 directions and it turns from a horizontal shooter to a vertical shooter. In fact, this was 1982, so a few years after the 2600 was first produced. Pretty advanced game for the 2600 as far as a basic shooter goes. Definitely give this one a try. And finally for the 2600 library, my most recent pickup is Warlords. Another paddle game where you're actually a block defending a castle, and not just from one player, but for 4 players. And yes, you can play against the computer instead of like specifically other players. Combat. So overall, pretty unique gimmick here. I think you're typically always the is it the bottom? Yeah, like the bottom left player. And you gotta hit the king in every other computer player's castle. And once you hit all of those players, you are a true warlord. I like it for its uniqueness. It plays pretty solidly. And another paddle pickup, if you will. Alright guys, there is the Atari 2600 collection and counting. But before we end today's video, I got a few more surprises for you. It is the Atari 7800 collection I have right in front of me. You can't see it? You're about to see it. And I've already reviewed like half of the games here, but we're just going to breeze through this. Because I think you've seen mostly what there is to see, but maybe a few more games are worth spending a minute talking about. Starting with Dark Chambers, a Gauntlet-style game. I'm actually a little surprised this isn't Gauntlet. And might I add, some of these are color cartridges, while others are in black and white, strangely enough. But Dark Chambers is kind of like a second-hand Gauntlet and is still published by Atari. And, you know, it really... I mean, for something that plays like Gauntlet, I mean, you couldn't really... I mean, you could call this Gauntlet, and I'd still believe you, saying this is either a spin-off to Gauntlet or it's a direct sequel. Maybe it plays a little bit differently. I'll have to play Gauntlet some more to, like, determine that, but overall, if you like sort of RPGs or sort of top-down kind of Legend of Zelda Gauntlet games, go with Dark Chambers. Donkey Kong? Yeah, that's right. We got some Nintendo in here. Actually, for a while, I've actually liked this version a little more than the NES version. Now, the NES version is very iconic, but 7800 version, number one, thank God they fixed that god-awful walking sound from the NES version. And that's something I don't say every day because the Atari 7800 has a very weak sound chip. Barely changed anything from the 2600. But the gameplay of Donkey Kong is pretty solid here. And just overall another great port of the game. We have Fatal Run. Now some of these, or a couple of these, like this one, normally you'd be paying a hefty fine for an authentic copy of these, but Atari has been reselling these on their website, and this is one of them. This one came in the sleeve. And think of Outrun, and yeah, think of like a combat Outrun. Did they make a combat like style Outrun game? I'll have to do some research, but Fatal Run is one of those games where you're not so much limited by time, and you could buy weapons to upgrade your car and just go after other drivers. And the more bad guys you shoot down, the more people you save. I think this is a very nice concept for a 7800 title. I think this one's done very well and something you should definitely check out. Very fun. Galaga, the good old classic Galaga. I think it's a little bit slower than the arcade version, like the original arcade version that I known growing up, but is it a bad port of the game? No. No, not at all. It is pretty solid. It does get pretty fast later on. You'd be surprised. But the 7800 version does pack a punch with this port of the game. A very beat-up copy of Miss Pac-Man, one that a lot of people recommend, and yeah, I'd say it's another pretty solid port of the game. Ninja Golf, one that die-hard 7800 fans absolutely love. It's golf mixed with beat-em-ups and ninjas, of course. Every time you hit a ball, you go and beat up ninjas, gophers, sharks. I'm not making that up. You actually go and beat up gophers. Damn things throw nuts at me. But what they did with this game is pretty quirky and very well done, and that's the most important part. It's a pretty solid game rather than just simply golfing. They took a golf game and made it into an action beat 'em up like Vigilante. I really like this one. And for some reason, I think my copy specifically with a few others, when you get to the sand level, there's a few tan sprites that flicker for some reason. I don't know what's up with that. Pole Position 2, another color cartridge. There's another variant of this that was the pack-in title for the 7800. And this is a pretty solid racing game. It's definitely up there with Final Lap and, well, not Rally X, that's a different game, but also like the original Pole Position. Should they have made this a pack-in game for the 7800? If you ask me, I think Ninja Golf definitely would have caught people's attention more, but I mean, at least they didn't choose a bad game. And finally, Xevious. I have the Famicom version of this game. This one plays a little bit slower. It is a little bit tighter. It's a little bit tighter. So, for those reasons, I recommend a few other ports other than the 7800 version, but does that mean it's a bad game? No. No, this is another... Yet again, we have another decent port of Xevious. It's just a little bit slower and a little bit tighter. It's not perfect, but it does get the job done, and you will have a few minutes of fun playing this if you love Xevious. Guys, have you played Atari today? Please let me know. And if you enjoyed watching, thank you so much. And bye.